we just put this piece of music over it, and it just felt like we were inside her head so much more. It was like Emilie had tapped into something that was going on internally with Enid, and it was incredible. It just drew us in to the character even more. A pivotal film for me in making Nasty was in making Censor was Nasty, which is not exactly like it wasn't that Censor was Nasty turned into a feature film. It was more that the short film Nasty was a way for me to explore the world of Censor and some of the themes and ideas, and also use the short as a calling card for the feature. So that was, a big part of taking that step, I think. And I do think it's really important, as a director, to understand the other departments, really, to be able to communicate with those departments on a kind of more detailed level, I guess. And putting yourself in the shoes of those people is great.
I've realized like a few months ago, actually, that I've always loved soundtrack, but I never really imagined myself as a film composer growing up. It never really felt like this is something I can do. And it's when I moved to the UK to study at university, and I did my BA at Westminster, where they have like a big campus and they have a film school. And I came to study music. And then you meet people who make short films and they need music and they ask you if you'd like to do the music. And I just got hooked, because I love making my own music and it's very satisfying on many levels. But when you're a cinema fan and you're a storytelling fan, and then you go into a room and you watch a project on which so many people have worked on, and you realize you can add something, and it just really, really, it's a really pleasing sensation to be part of this multimedia.
The first seed of Censor was actually reading an article about the Hammer horror era, which is obviously earlier than the Video Nasty era when it's set. But I was reading this article and there was a comment in there about how during the period there weren't many guidelines for censors, but one of the only rules they had was that the sight of blood on the breast of a woman would be cut from films because they believed it would make men likely to commit rape. And this basically opened a wormhole in my brain, because I was like, well, surely loads of the film censors were men. And if these violent images are supposed to make us commit these violent acts, what protects the censor from losing control? And what if a censor believed so much in censorship or in these ideas that they started to think that the films they were watching at work were having an effect on them? And I was like, I want to explore a character who is having a difficult time with their shadow self or their moral compass, and they're in this role. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought this is a really exciting way to explore our relationship with the horror genre. We didn't attach a composer until we'd shot the film. So we were in the really, really early stages of the edit, and Emilie and I spoke again. And I remember, I think I was talking to you about deep rumbles and things like that, and going low and Enid's belly and stuff. And then Emilie sent this mood reel, which was based off reading the script and those conversations. And honestly, it was incredible. I know people might say these kinds of things, but it really, really was incredible. And there's moments when you're making a film which will always stay with you, that there's something kind of magical happening in that moment. And Emilie sent this reel, which was maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes of music. Was it that long? Yeah. And, obviously hadn't seen pictures, so there was no kind of this is going with this scene. And me and my editor, Mark Towns, were in the edit, and we just took a part of that music and we put it over the scene where Enid she's sitting it's one of the most vulnerable points for her, where she's sitting in a towel in her house, and she's just done something terrible, or had a very scary experience. And we just put this piece of music over it, and it just felt like we were inside her head so much more. It was like Emilie had tapped into something that was going on internally with Enid, and it was incredible. It just drew us in to the character even more.
In a sense, again, maybe because I knew that Paulina would do a great job, I didn't really focus on the period element first, because I knew all the visuals would probably do an amazing job at that.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to just tell her inner life, because I felt like this would be the thing I could really bring to the story.
Were there reference points for the film, for the score specifically, Prano?
Actually, well, one of the first, we spoke about the fog, definitely, because that was a score that I was listening to a lot while I was writing, and I do tend to listen to it a lot because it's got this eerie sort of almost at times ambient sound to it that you can listen to while you're writing. It's kind of not so intrusive, but obviously the tone of that, I think that was a touch point for me and Emilie. And then there were some Lucio Fulci and Argento films, like we obviously talked about Goblin, and House by the Cemetery and Deep Red. So they were some of them.
The start, that just the knocks, there's like, it was interesting for people to not know if it was not in terms of coming from the speakers in the cinema, but whether we were fully transported into the Don't Go in the Church, whether that might be what's happening in that world. And then you start understanding through the music also that you are with Enid's point of view, you are inside her head rather than in the film. So it's this shift from a score that could be Don't Go in the Church, but is slowly weaving with something that's very clearly Enid's inner life. We have little a Japanese instrument that I pluck most of the score, but on this one I use a bow on it, and it creates this like really harsh, really high pitch, really pure tone that really is also very unsettling, I think. And I think it's another cue where what draws you in is the kind of a less is more thing, but all the sounds are just a little bit strange. So you kind of pay attention to them, but we placed them very carefully and just made sure to attract people's attention by being like, what is this? Rather than just bombarding them with lots of big sound or just...
Yeah, it is interesting because like when I get sent a piece of music, so when Emilie would send me something, at first I'd watch it with the picture and then I'd start to watch it just alone. Listen to it alone and actually feel emotionally, how does this make me feel without the picture, then watch it with picture. And you're working very, like I say, in quite a targeted way, but then it's really important to watch the film back on a run. And that's when you start to go, oh, actually, we can push this more, or this could be less. So there might have been a cue that, you know, one of us felt that it should be stronger in some way, and actually you watch it back on the run and think, no, that kind of needs to be quite subtle. And it's through that overarching view that you start to get that feeling of what the music might need to do more in different places.
I think if you look on Google for university in your area that will have a music degree or a master's degree that focuses on film music, and you reach out, you're very likely to find people who are very, very eager to score a short film. And then if you like music that's more indie, smaller bands, if you're quite curious and explore smaller band in your area and everything like that, it might be worth, if you really love what they're doing, to just drop them an email and see if they'd be up for it. Maybe listen to a music that really makes you happy or really got you excited a long time ago, and just remind yourself that music is pleasurable and that you really enjoy it. Because I think sometimes what gives us a block is all the kind of added layers of meaning that we put around writing a music. It's the pressure, it's the kind of, this has to have all this impact on my life, and it's dwarfing. And just sometimes reconnecting with just the sheer joy of your favorite pop song from when you were a kid might just be like, actually, this is supposed to be fun.
one of the things, this is going to sound like really bad advice, but one of the things that I find is stepping away. Sometimes and that's mainly because when I'm having a block, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to solve it. And then you step away and do something else and all the ideas start to come. So, that doesn't always work, but it has worked for me recently.
Don't remove the dialogue from your logic file or whatever you used to write. Just make sure that very regularly you check your cue with the dialogue playing, because at the end of the day, if you get in the way of the dialogue, your cue is just going to be down in the mix. So don't just constantly listen to your music with the dialogue running, because it's probably more important than the music in the film. So